Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on the NTREIS Pro app. I'm your presenter, Marilyn Maxwell. Feel free to take note of my contact information. If I can be of any help, just shoot me an email or give me a call. The webinar today will talk about how to search for property from both the consumer and agent perspectives, the sharing and saving of property information once property is located, and then overviewing where leads could be captured and generated from within the app for agents. To begin the process, you'll just need to log in as a NTREIS member. This information, the login information will be the same as when you log into your NTREIS MLS system, or matrix system. Beginning at the top of the screen, I'll just cover some of the little extra icons there first, and then we'll go into searching for property. A little image of a car, the icon for a car, launches what we call car mode, and that will actually find property that's nearby and available in your MLS system. The idea is you would launch car mode and then begin to drive. And as you drive, it would locate property that is available through the MLS. And once you stop, pull over and park, the automatic auto attendant will begin reading the property information for you. So you'll learn the basics about the home, like price, bedroom count, bathroom count, square footage, etc. And then there'll be some on-screen prompts. Again, because it does require that you stop first, you can either do it hands-free, audibly, or you'll be able to tap the screen to call the agent, to get more information, to make appointments. So again, several different options will pop up on the screen and you can speak them and or tap them on the screen. The next icon over the little magnifying glass is to search for property by MLS number or address. Once you tap there, you can search for property just by filling in the blank. That way you don't have to go through the full searching by criteria option that takes several other steps. You can just quickly and easily put in an address, city, zip, or MLS number to pull the property up that way. Moving over just a touch, the next one is our chat option. You can click on that icon. It looks kind of like a conversation bubble from a cartoon. Mine has a red bell over it in the example, just simply because it's not been set up before. You may not see the little red dot. You may or may not see that little red icon on top of the chat icon when you're looking at yours. Again, if you just simply tap on the icon, it allows you then to come in and set up the times that you might want to be available for chat. I'm using a Droid phone, so my icons will look a little different than iPhone options. In the upper right where I have a little gear type icon, in iPhones, you're just going to see the word settings, so it's actually a little bit easier, a little more intuitive. But once you click on that settings option, you can then pick the day of the week or days of the week, and then the times on those days that you'd like to be available for the instant messaging. It's just like good old-fashioned AOL instant messaging. So if you are available from, say, 9 to 5 on Monday, and a consumer pulls up any property that you have listed or somehow finds your profile, they'll see that they could call you or email you, but they'll also see that you're currently available online to chat. So it's just another option for consumers to be able to reach out for you, to you and get more information or services. And then once you have engaged in a chat, it will actually record the transcript of that chat. We just don't have any written examples of that here necessarily, but you can see some dummy data where somebody reached out to this agent about that particular property. So the date and timestamp are recorded. And again, any chat session that occurred, you'd see the actual transcript of that conversation. And it's saved there in your notification areas or the chat area, so that at any time you can go back and pick up that chat with that consumer, pick up where you left off. If they had asked a question and you needed time to do your research, again, you could just go right back to the chat and pick up where you left off. It also lets you save it long-term, again, just so that you can see what you did discuss, have the opportunity to find properties that meet their request or any of those types of things that may have come up in the chat. And the last icon across the top is the little kind of person looking icon, the user icon. That's just going to allow you to log out of the app whenever you'd like to do that. There's really no reason to log out. Some do just to, for security reasons, don't like to leave things logged in on their apps. But Our app is quite secure, and as long as your phone is with you, you've got total control over who is logging into that app, of course. Once in a blue moon, if there's an update to the app, it will potentially automatically log you out to perform that update or upgrade to the app. But again, rarely do you need to log in or log out. Just personal preference. All right, so moving down just a touch to nearby search. I'm physically in Houston today, so it'll look a little different. But when you click on that nearby search, just as the name insinuates, it's going to look for property that are nearby you. And then you will either choose homes for sale, homes for lease, recently sold or leased, nearby open houses, or nearby home values. Home values will give you a tax assessed value guesstimate of sort of a home value in that regard. Nearby homes for sale and lease give you current active MLS properties all across the state of Texas. So again, it would default to looking for property in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area when you first tapped on it, and show you what was available from your MLS as well as any other MLS from any other association across the state of Texas. When you find properties that are not available in your MLS, you'll be able to look at the basic property information, but it's not going to show you information like appointment information, alarm codes, gate codes, things like that, unless you are a member of that particular MLS. If you are a member of whatever MLS that property is listed through, then you see all of the same details that you would see if you were seeing that property in your matrix MLS system. Alarm codes, gate codes, agent private remarks, as well as the public remarks and room sizes and characteristics. Looking at the results on the map, these are homes that are quote unquote nearby. The color coding will be very similar to your matrix MLS system. The little green map pins indicate property that are active and available for sale. The kind of orangish yellowish color indicate those that are in a pending status. In the upper right of the map, you'll notice that there's a sold option. So if I wanted, I could engage that, enable that, and then pick my sold date range to be able to see property information on homes that have sold very recently. Again, this is pulling data from your MLS at this stage, as well as properties that are in nearby MLSs that are for sale. Again, if it's not from your association or your MLS system that you're a member of, you will not see all of the details on property information. So you won't see sold prices potentially. Again, on active available properties, you wouldn't necessarily see showing instructions and all of that information that is agent and member centric. Again, I'm on a Droid, so some of the functionalities or icons may look a little different to you, but on any phone, you'll have the option to switch from the map view that I'm in now to the list view to see the property details. And if you tap on any property, you'll see further details about that particular property. Again, because it happens to be in an MLS that I'm a member of, I'll see a full detail page showing instructions and everything. At the top, you can see there's an MLS information tab in the upper right. So that will give me, again, alarm information, showing instruction type information, financial information, agent-centric information that will not be revealed to a consumer. So if a consumer was using the app, they wouldn't see that tab at all. They would only see the options to contact the listing agent. Again, here's an example of what it looks like when the chat is enabled. This particular agent has chosen to enable chat and pick some dates and times. And if they were available at the moment, then I would be able to chat with them. Kevin Mammings is not currently available, you can see, so he is enabled chat, just not at the time that I'm looking at it right now. So he's just not currently available, but I could still submit a chat to him and have him look at it later, as the pop-up just told us. Lastly, on this page, you have the option to favorite property. So the heart in the lower right corner of the photo allows you to mark it as a favorite. And if you'll notice, it's kind of tiny, but there is an option for folders right below that little heart. And if you click on that little gray folder, you can create new folders. Again, in the lower right corner of mine, I have the option to create with my little pink icon. On an iPhone, it would literally say the words create new folder. So a little more intuitive. And then you can simply call the folder whatever it is you like. You can collect multiple properties in folders, and then you'll be able to share that entire folder with a consumer. So if you found 6, 8, 12 properties that you think that consumer would like, you would have the option to share the whole folder with them at a later time. And I'm just going to add in a name real quickly. And then tap the name of that folder to indicate that I want to add this property to that folder. And then as it says on the screen there, you can leave some notes. So if I wanted to have notes that I would share with the consumer about, what a great price per square foot that was, or how I understand from the listing agent they're going to replace the carpeting, or whatever it might be, you could certainly leave a note. Notes are not required. It's just an option. So if you don't have anything that you'd like to enter there, you could just leave it blank. And then you click the check mark in the upper right corner to indicate that you are done to save the property into the folder, as well as saving any notes that you may have written. So that's it for kind of the body of the property information page. Across the top, again, we're in general, so that's all of the description of the property. Full description, since I'm in my own MLS, so I would see showing instructions, alarm codes, gate codes, all the details on the property in that area. The map simply takes you to a map of the individual property, so you can see more like the plat sort of map, the lot outline, a zoomed in version of the mapping. And then a little further down, you'll see that you could get to driving directions using the mapping apps on your phone. Google Maps or Apple Maps will pop up once you click on that, and it'll give you turn-by-turn directions from wherever you input as your starting point, where you are currently, or another address that you add in to the property in question. Lastly, surrounding area, that is going to be Google Street View. And so you'll be able to virtually walk the street and see what is, viewable from the front door of the house. If there is utilities easement, if there's a cell phone tower right there, what the neighborhood looks like in general, just based on whatever Google Street View is able to collect in those images. There aren't images for every single property, but there are images for the great majority of every property. So most all the time you're able to see that Google Street View. The last option on the page is drive time. If you click on Get Drive Time, this is going to tell you how long it would take you to commute from a starting point to that property based on your arrival time, what the best route would be. So if I say that I want to end up at a particular address by 8:30 in the morning or something like that, again, I'm in Houston, so I'm just going to put a local address to me. And then you decide if you want to arrive at a particular time of day, and whether that's a weekday or weekend that you're trying to guesstimate. The idea here, again, is if a consumer were looking at this property information and they were interested in purchasing that home, and then they had to get to work every day, or they needed to drop their children off at school, or wanted to go work out at the gym, or whatever it might be, it's guesstimating the drive time for them and the best time to leave. Again, I got some wacky numbers there, given that I'm sitting in Houston today. But the best time to leave in terms of the best commute is on the top line there. So it's saying if I leave at that time, I can arrive by 9:30, even though I had put 8:30 in there as my preferred drive time, arrival time rather. It is estimating the best commute. So if I leave a little differently, I can have a better commute. It'll take me a little bit less time, but I arrive by 9:30. So that's the downside to that. The second line is showing me when I need to leave and how I need to go, how long it will take me to get there in order to arrive by 8:30 in the morning, as I put in the system to begin with. And then if I leave right now, I can be there by 4:40-ish. So again, the idea is mostly for consumers. Again, it could be for agents and consumers. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take me to get from point A to point B being this listing. So perhaps you do the drive time to estimate about what time you should leave to go show that property if you're going to physically show it in person. That could come in handy for you as an agent. And then lastly, again, you have your MLS info. We talked about it. I just didn't show it initially. The agent full report will take you to your Matrix MLS system. So just like you're used to seeing property photo in the upper left area, below the photo you have several different icons to view the tax records and other important pieces of the data, and then everything else that you're used to seeing laid out in the way that you're used to seeing. Slightly smaller, of course, because it's on a phone screen potentially, but again, if you're more comfortable seeing the data on that page, you can find things more easily. You could certainly pull up that agent full report. When we were on the general tab just a moment ago, everything that you might need to know about the property is in that general tab. It's just laid out a little bit differently than your Matrix MLS page, our agent full report. So again, either will get you the same information, but the benefit of pulling up the agent full is you do have some of those quick view and quick use icons. And again, the page is potentially more familiar to you in its layout compared to the app. Also, the property archive report, there is another quick view icon back in Matrix for this. So when you pull up that agent full report, you'll see the little clock looking icon to pull up your property archive report. You can do that from that Matrix agent full area, or you can do it from here within the mobile view. And it's the history of that property in MLS, every price change, status change, agent change, anything that has occurred on that property in the MLS system is accounted for in the property archive report, either back through your Matrix portal or here in the mobile version. Closing cost estimate, pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of a little worksheet. You can plug in some numbers and get a general closing cost estimate for anyone who might be interested in that information. Though it's not really your job to provide those numbers, they likely will ask on occasion, so it gives you a quick, easy way to sort of guesstimate that. Just be certain that you let them know that it is an estimate based on a scenario that of numbers that you plugged in there, but you never know what the buyer's offer is going to entail. Each scenario could be different, so they just need to know that it is an estimate for sure. Again, another intuitively named one, the tax profile report, is just going to take you to the Realist tax option. You can launch Realist and see the tax data on that particular property in mobile view. You just have to put the property address in there. So it's a couple of extra steps. Again, if you were to go into the agent full, you'd have your quick links to the tax record from there, which would not require you to add the address into the system. Again, you'd just be able to pull it up seamlessly. Scrolling on down, the Create Instant CMA. That is our super quick, one of our shortest, sweetest CMA products. And that allows you to use the subject property, in this case, 5609 Lyons Road, as the subject to your CMA. Now, this property is already listed in MLS, and we traditionally associate CMAs with list price for a home, estimating list price. You also can do a CMA for purposes of placing an offer. So though this property is already in MLS, I could run an instant CMA, just a matter of about 5 or 6 steps, filling in some blanks to get a guesstimate of current market value so that I could then advise my buyers about where to place an offer. So though it's not traditionally thought of to do a CMA rather on a home that someone else already has listed, that's the reason that you might do that. The next menu item, home value comparables, or an AVM, automated valuations. These will give you guesstimates from third parties about a sort of generic guesstimate of value of that home from Black Knight and then the appraisal district. The appraisal district number is simply what they're paying taxes based on. So that's not necessarily an accurate suggested list price or anything like that, but it's a good number to know. They are paying taxes on that, so they will be able to know that. But also then the Black Knight system, which pulls data from certain MLSs and gives a nice overview of a potential target price in terms of list or resale value of the home, is there as well. Consumers and, realtors can access this, but it's not available to consumers to do with CMAs and some of those other agent-centric features. Lastly, on that page, you can see at the very bottom, it asks if they would like to request a comparative market analysis from the agent that I'm logged in as, in this case, Peter Ryan. So that's a nicety for consumers to be able to ask you for a CMA. if you're the listing agent. So that request would go directly to the listing agent. Throughout the system, there are a handful of different lead capture opportunities that we've already talked about some of those. The chat is one of those. The request for CMA is another. Again, property information, if it's your own listing, just having the forms where they can reach out to you by phone, email, or chat are pretty prominent lead capture possibilities. Last but not least, at the upper right area of my screen, I have the option to share. Again, mine looks like the little kind of triangle-ish icon because I'm on a Droid phone. On an iPhone, it would just say the word share. So it would make it, again, a little bit more intuitive. And then the 3 dots or more menu, again, allow you to move this property to a folder, which we already did. There is something called My List, and then there's favorites and not interested. So the heart would favorite it. You could then choose to put it in folders and subfolders within those favorites. So you've got one main list of favorites, and then the subcategories or sub organization of folders if you wanted that. My List is just a loose list of properties. You cannot create folders in My List. I typically use the My List function for things that I'm personally interested in that I wouldn't necessarily share with a consumer later. And then I tend to use the folders for things that will be more consumer centric so that I can, again, make collections of properties for individual consumers or different reasons, different situations, homes for lease, homes for sale for particular customers or clients. The last two, printing and directions, the same driving directions we talked about earlier is accessible under this menu. And then printing, if you have a wireless printer and you have access to that, then of course you could print the property details. Most of these are fairly intuitive. All right, so just kind of backing out of the property detail page, we talked a little bit about the solds. We'll do a visual on that now. Again, in the upper right of the map, you'll see a sort of reddish pinkish box. If you check that little box, it will take you to the page where you can start putting your dates in. Just be mindful of the fact that the top line is talking about a pending date. Though we clicked on solds, the first field isn't about sold date. All right, so just be mindful of that. Click to toggle and enable the recently solds. And here you'll see your close date. And so that's what you really want to fill in is close date. There is an opportunity to look for solds within a certain price range if you'd like to do that, and a sold price per square foot range if you'd like to do that. Often when you're searching for solds, the date is sufficient and you don't really need to do anything other than that. But sometimes you might want to sort by those prices. So I'll just select the first of this month and search for anything that has sold since the beginning of this month. This page does not have a check or an OK or a save. You just click the X in the upper left corner and it will refresh that map and show you that sold data. Again, if the pin is sort of that reddish color, that means that property is sold. And again, it will have sold since the beginning of April of this year, since that's the date that I put in. Once you tap on a property pin, you can see the details. We talked earlier about how you could go to the list view, but you can also access property data from the map view. You just simply tap on the pin for that property and then tap the little peek that it gives you at the bottom there to get into that full detail page. From here, you can use the heart like we talked about. Here's an example of an agent who is currently online. If you'll notice, the chat is green and available. So I could begin speaking with Jill right now via that instant chat. Scheduling appointments, again, for a consumer, it would simply just request that appointment and ask that the agent get back to them about the date and time that they would like. If you'll notice, there's a general tab and a map tab. That's it. There is no MLS information on this screen. I purposely went to a home that was in Houston, and that way I would show you the agent I'm logged into the app as is not a member of the Houston MLS. Therefore, I cannot access anything but sort of a consumer view of the property detail information here. So just wanting to show you all the difference in views. Again, as a consumer, the page would always look like the one we most recently looked at. It always does not enable anything related to MLS for consumers. It knows the difference between a Realtor Pro login and a consumer login. So there's no concern about any information that they shouldn't have being released to consumers. So backing up now to our second layer of menus. Again, I went into homes for sale just a moment ago, but you've got the option to search for homes for lease, nearby recently sold, nearby recently leased, nearby open houses, and home values. Again, home values would be tax values. The last section is Google places, so things that are nearby like schools, parks, and libraries. If you have an interest in finding those types of locations nearby, you can search for those. Backing up to the main menu, again, you've got your option for nearby, which we focused on a good bit just now. The homes for sale and or homes for rent and lease is going to allow you to put criteria in. So instead of it just being geographically close to me, I could tap there to go into homes for sale or for lease. Yours will default to the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. But if you click on that region, again, you can see that we are showcasing properties all across the state of Texas. So if you wanted to look for property in the Tyler Longview area or Corpus Christi or Bryan College Station or something like that, you can pick a different region and easily be able to search for property outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Down a little bit further, you could put in city zip, MLS areas, sub areas, all of those characteristics that you would find in your Matrix MLS system. There is a checkbox right there to use your current location. So even though we didn't go into the homes nearby, I can very easily and quickly switch it to a nearby search if that's what I'd like to do. Again, filling in the blanks with address or MLS numbers is an option as well. So again, I don't have to back all the way out of this to go back to the little magnifying glass icon we talked about earlier. I could do those other types of searches easily from here. Also, it's defaulting to homes for sale because that's what I tapped on, but I can very easily switch over to homes for lease. So again, it's a pretty streamlined criteria page there that allows you to change your mind in the midst of what you're doing and not have to back all the way out and start over. Last but not least, in the top right corner, there is a drive time search. This works a little opposite of what we talked about earlier. This is now actually performing a search by commute. So instead of it telling me the quickest way and the amount of time it would take me to drive to something, because I already had that something or that property, this is allowing me to put in the address where I want to end up, the time of day that I want to get there, and then how long I want my drive to be, from 30 minutes all the way up to 90 minutes. It will then search, or excuse me, from 5 minutes all the way up to 90 minutes. It will then search for properties that are available in that commute time. And so that helps me find property that are, again, on my way to easily accessible in my route to work, dropping the kids off, getting to the gym each day, whatever the situation might be. So it's a way to search for property by commute. And then a little further down, you have your filter options or pieces of criteria. So I could seek out only single family homes in a certain price range with a certain number of bedrooms, square footage, year built, quite a few options there, pool or no pool, new in the last week, having an open house scheduled, or that have had a price reduction. So it makes it pretty quick and easy to scroll through and update your filters. It will then go out and look for just what is available and only within that 30-minute commute time if that's what I had chosen. Backing up just a bit where it says reset criteria toward the bottom of the screen, that will be important if you're using this filters page. The filters are remembered. Every time you use it, it remembers the last thing you did. So every time you open it, you probably are going to want to scroll to the bottom and click on reset criteria. Otherwise, it's going to remember every piece of criteria you chose in your previous search, and you might miss something. You may have searched for with a pool last time, and now you want no pool. So you're just kind of out of luck in terms of searching. You may miss that and end up with the wrong set of results, right? Looking back at our main menu now, a lot of these we've covered just from different angles. We've accessed them through property details or the filters. Again, our drive time search is an option here, so you don't have to be in the filters page. You can start that commute time search from here as well. Same thing with home values. Again, those would be tax assessed values. Car mode as a menu item as opposed to the little icon at the top that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar. And last in that section is Find a Pro. Again, we have a statewide database here, so finding another realtor in the state of Texas, perhaps you have a referral that you want to send to someone in Waco or something like that. Finding a pro using that address contact list will be the reason, the functionality there, the purpose of that section. Moving into leads and listings. Any leads that are generated for you throughout the app are going to be sent to you by email, and you'll get a little pop-up notification on your phone. We're all familiar with those little things that pop up and let us know we have a new text or a new email or whatever it might be. The app will pop up notifications for you about any communications from the chat or any properties that are favorited, and if it's your listing. And then again, it will email you as well. So you'll know about the leads long before you get to this menu item, but you can tap on My Leads and see any emails, showing requests, home value requests that are generated by consumers. All right. My Listings is going to list your listings that you currently have available in MLS. There will be an option to add and edit listings from here as well. So if you need to go in and quickly change a price or status, you don't necessarily need to stop what you're doing and go to your matrix system and log in. This will automatically connect to your matrix system and allow you to do those quick edits from within the app. Next section, agent tools. Again, most of these are fairly self-explanatory and intuitive. Editing your profile, adding your photo, writing your bio. Your information is automatically going to pull from your Matrix MLS system. So again, if you needed to edit anything, you certainly could do that from within Matrix, but you could do that on the fly from within the app as well. And then we've already talked a little about Instant CMA. An Instant CMA from this vantage point will ask you to put in a subject property, and you'll begin the CMA on a property that's not necessarily listed in MLS already. So before, we were using the Instant CMA option on a current active listing and potentially generating that CMA for purposes of buyers making an offer. This Instant CMA from the main menu is going to allow you to do a CMA on a property and get an estimated market value, more for the purposes of letting a seller know where they might list their home. From the forms section, you can just pull up forms, PDF copies of an IABS, buyer rep agreement, listing agreement, whatever it is. You're not filling in the forms. This does not work like a zip form or transaction disk or dot loop. It's simply PDF copies of forms. You can open the forms. You can print them if you have, again, a wireless printer. You can also email them. So if you need to do that, you're able to get the forms that you might need without having to log into a form management type program. Financial calculators, such as mortgage calculator. We talked a little bit earlier about that as well. Seller net sheets and buyer closing cost estimates, and then a mortgage calculator with an amortization worksheet attached to it. Again, it's just a matter of filling in some blanks with some numbers that you know that might be true in that particular scenario with that particular client. Again, just be really mindful of using those and being very certain that the consumer understands that it is an estimate and that's sort of outside the scope of your license. That's not really a thing that you can guarantee will come true. It's just a nicety to be able to give them some estimates on those numbers. The chat settings we accessed earlier by going through the chat icon at the top. So accessing the dates, times, etc. If you wanted to enable the chat, same way, same end result, different way to get to it. Again, a different way to edit your photo and profile from here, which we did a little bit earlier at the top through the dashboard. And then Texas real estate markets. We talked a little bit about this as well in the previous parts of the webinar. These are the different regions. So again, starting off with the Houston Gulf Coast region, you can see we've got 48,000 and change listings currently for sale and 7,901 for lease. The greater Dallas area has 32,109 for sale and 3,131 for lease currently. If you tap on that, it takes you into the property results just specific to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Apologize. Apparently the location was having a little difficulty on homes for sale, but every listing that's available for lease now is what it's showing. In the upper right corner, you can go into more options, and your search options will take you to that filter page. So though I just loaded everything for lease, 3,131 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I could now pare this down by price, beds, bath, stories, pool, whatever it is that was relevant to my search. So again, a little bit different way to start some of the same processes and get the same end results that we may have gotten from a different method a little earlier in the webinar. Last but not least, the chat and more section, the My List. Again, I talked about that earlier. If you add a property to My List, it's just a running tally or a running list of all the properties that you have put into that section. No folders are available, no subcategorizing or anything like that is available in the list. So again, I talked earlier about how I might use that for my own personal properties that are of interest to me, keep them separate from my consumer-based search results, and just give me a way to kind of collect those separately. The chat, again, same but different, same way to get to that, third way to get to it. Favorites and bookmarks will show you what you have just clicked the heart on. If you only click the heart and don't put it in a folder, that's classified as an unorganized favorite, or bookmark. If you tap folders here, you'll see the sample folder for the webinar that I just created in that one property that I put in there. Again, you can share folders, the properties in the folders. If you swipe it, you can delete it. So it makes it pretty easy. If you click on the more options once you open the folder, you can delete the folder from there as well. So again, several different ways to do several different things. If you click on the share icon, again, mine is the kind of triangle looking icon, but on an iPhone, it would say the word share. You would then be able to share the entire contents of that folder by whatever methods you had on your phone. So Facebook, Messenger, text, email, whatever it is. In the filters area, when we're performing a search, you can save those searches. So down at the bottom where we had the reset filters, reset that criteria, there was an option to save that. So if you choose to save searches, you can run those at any point. Again, you can enable notifications if you'd like to do that. So you'd get pop-up notifications anytime there's a new listing, price change, or status change on any of those properties saved in your search. You can also begin the process of creating and saving a search from here using the little plus in the upper right corner. Again, just to show you the visual, whether you accessed it from the search option at the very beginning at the top of the menu or not, you can just, again, simply tap and complete the appropriate fields. And then as you get finished, click on the more or three dots menu there in the upper right, and you have the option to save that search, call it what you'd like, decide if you want emails or not, and or pop-up notifications or not, and then just click on save. Also in the more menu, the little three dots, load search is a choice. So anytime you want to run a search that you've previously saved, you can also pull it up from within that criteria or filters page. So again, 3 or 4 different ways to access the functionality and perform the search, save the search, or load a saved search. Back at the very top, if you go to homes for sale, again, in more options, you'll have the options to save and load from there as well. So a couple of different methods to completing the same option. Search history is going to save every search you've ever performed. So whether you save it or not, the search history has, again, sort of a running tally of all the searches that you've done in the past. If you were in the middle of doing something, you got a phone call and got sidetracked and just forgot to save the search, at any point you can come to the search history, tap that set of criteria, tap on search, and now it will load properties that meet that criteria. So at this stage now, you could then choose to save that search if you wanted to do that. Favorite it, bookmark it, etc. All right. Last few things. Not interested. We talked just briefly that there was a not interested option. Basically, any property that you view gives you the option to click that little heart and favorite it. It also gives you the option to say you're not interested. So as I tap a property pin to open it up and see the full detail, again, I can choose not interested. Pros and cons. This moves this off of the main list of results and puts it in that not interested category. So it's no longer going to be a result in any search that you do because you've moved it to the not interested category. So just be mindful of using that. If it's a property that you're just not interested in right now because the consumer you're doing the search for just doesn't want that because it's in pending or something like that, I would refrain from using the not interested option. It's just simply a little overkill for that one doesn't fit the bill right now. Again, if there's something where you know that you'll never be interested in that property for whatever reason, it backs up to railroad tracks or it's got a cell phone tower in the backyard or, whatever it might be, maybe not interested could be something that you use in that type of case. The not interested section, again, if you access it from the main menu, will show you whatever you've marked as not interested. You could also then just swipe and remove it from not interested. So you can get it out of there at any point if that's what you'd like to do. Pretty easy to get it back into the main set of results. It's just out of sight, out of mind. So be mindful of that if you ever do put it in the not interested category. The last two items in that section are exclusive to HAR members. So if you're not a member of the Houston Association of Realtors, you won't have access to the Q&A or ratings and reviews option. Last but certainly not least is our support section. The help and feedback as you're working in the app. If you discover there's any things that we could do differently or better, you can shake an iPhone, just give it a little, rotate it to give it a little jiggle, and it will pop up with a help and feedback option that you can fill in. So if you need a functionality added or something didn't work quite right, or you think that we have something in there that could be removed or reworded or anything like that, just simply give the phone a little shake and use it to fill in the blanks on our help and feedback form. On Droid phones, we just have to come here to the help and feedback menu and tap on it and fill in the blanks about our request or concern. There are also tutorial videos in the middle-ish of that section right there. If you tap on tutorial videos, you'll see a series of different videos on every functionality that I talked about today, pretty much broken down into a separate video. It's condensed here, but they have so the title's kind of cut off a little, but you would have a video for searching for property. You have an option for searching by map, sharing property, creating folders. So all of those things that we've discussed today will be available to you from the tutorials. And then last but not least, at the very bottom, log out versus log out other devices. You can be using multiple devices and have 5 different devices logged in at once with your username and login information for the NTREIS Association of Realtors, but associations of realtors. But 5 is the max. And maybe, you had an iPad, it's now your old iPad, so you're going to give it to your kiddo or something like that. If you click the log out other devices, it will log you out of the app on every device that you had connected. Again, for security reasons, you may want to do that. Or again, if that particular device is not going to be used in the same way any longer, that's a reason why you might do the log out other devices as opposed to just logging out. Most all of the same items that we found in the main menu here in the center can be found in the pop-out menu with the 3 lines in the upper left. Different way to get through to some of the same things. So just depending on personal preference, you've got those 2 different options. And that brings me to the end of the information to be shared in today's webinar. I thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions or if I can be of any help to you, just give me a call or shoot me an email and I will be glad to do that. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.